All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle a huge question for anyone who teaches anything. How do you build a lesson that actually works? One that really sticks with students. We're going to unpack a really powerful framework and turn what can feel like abstract theory into a practical, step-by-step blueprint you can actually use. I mean, really think about that for a second. We've all sat through those lessons that just cover the material, right? They check the boxes. But what's the secret sauce that makes a lesson truly create learning? That's the question we're going to get to the bottom of today. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the big picture, the ultimate goal. Then we'll get into the blueprint itself, the 4 key pillars. And finally, we'll see how it all snaps together to build something amazing. Okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts of a single lesson, let's zoom out for a minute. What are we really trying to build here? What's the end game? See, the real goal isn't just about creating a bunch of one-off lessons. It's about designing an entire cohesive course inside a learning management system, like Canvas or Google Classroom or whatever you use. The key here is that the whole course needs to be accessible, and every single part of it should be laser-focused on getting students to their learning goals. Each lesson is like a single crucial brick in a much larger building. So how do we build each of those bricks? Well, that's where this really cool framework comes in. It's called the Utah High Quality Instructional Cycle, or just the HQI cycle for short. And this is our blueprint. The HQI cycle breaks everything down into 4 super clear, logical steps. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like planning a road trip, right? You got to know where you're going. You need a map to guide you. You probably want to check your GPS along the way. And of course, you want to take a picture when you finally get there. Let's break down what each of these steps looks like in a lesson. First things first, you can't start a journey without knowing where you're headed. Every great lesson needs a crystal clear destination. In teaching, we call this our learning intention. So officially, a learning intention is a statement that lays out the learning goal for the day. But really, it's just a simple way to answer the most important question for you and your students. What exactly are we doing here today? And if you want to make it even simpler, it all just boils down to this one question. As you plan, just ask yourself this. What do I want my students to know or be able to do by the end of this lesson? That's it. Your answer to that question is your learning intention. It's the destination you're punching into your GPS. Okay, so we've got our destination plugged in, but how will we, and maybe more importantly, how will our students know when we've actually arrived? Well, for that, you need a map. You need your success criteria. Success criteria are all about making the learning visible. They're the specific, concrete things that show that the learning intention has actually been met. It takes that big, sometimes fuzzy goal and makes it something everyone can actually see and point to. And again, let's just boil it down to one simple question. What will it literally look like when a student has gotten it? Will they be able to solve a certain kind of math problem or maybe write a paragraph that has a really clear topic sentence? That tangible proof, that's your success criteria. All right, so we have our destination and we have our map. Now we need a way to make sure we're still on the right track. This brings us to the last 2 pillars of the HQI cycle, and they work together as our checkpoints, formative and summative assessments. Now, there are 2 kinds of checkpoints on our journey. First, you've got formative assessments. Think of these as the quick, casual check-ins during the trip. Looking at the map, checking the gas gauge. They're things like exit tickets or a quick thumbs up/thumbs down to see if you need to adjust your teaching. Then, you've got the summative assessment. This is the big one. This is the final exam, the term paper, the final project. It's the photo you take at the landmark to prove you made it. Its whole purpose is to evaluate mastery at the very end. So, here's where it gets really cool. These 4 pillars, the destination, the map, and the 2 checkpoints, they aren't just abstract ideas for a lesson plan. They are the actual functional building blocks of that awesome online course we talked about at the very beginning. Let's see how that works. This is where the blueprint becomes reality inside your LMS. That learning intention you wrote for a unit, boom, that's your module title. Those success criteria you came up with, well, those become the clear, specific lines in your grading rubric. Those formative assessments you planned, they turn into fun, interactive quizzes or discussion board prompts. And that summative assessment, that becomes your big end-of-unit project or final exam. See, it's a perfect, seamless flow from planning to a real, functional course. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a little something to think about. When you look at your next lesson plan, which one of these 4 pillars could you strengthen to make the biggest possible impact on your students?
Because here's the thing, just reinforcing one of them, making the destination clearer, adding more detail to the map, or improving your checkpoints can be the one thing that transforms your lesson from just covering stuff into an experience that creates real, lasting learning.